so this is the motor for the LeBlond lathe. And this is not the ideal setup that I would like to use to test this, but this is a three-phase motor. I do not have three-phase pulled into the shop. And I run my mill off of this phase converter. And what I've done, I've got in here and checked all the wiring to make sure nothing's shorted. I've just got it wired into the phase converter. And there's Tommy. We're going to do this kind of the dangerous way. Don't troll me too bad for that one. It's only a 3/4 horsepower motor. And he's actually, because I don't have a switch to this part, he's going to flip the breaker. And we're going to see if this fires up. So at first he's going to flip the breaker on and right back off. And we're going to see if there's any fireworks. Alright Tommy, just flip the breaker on and back off. Alright, so it fires up. Doesn't sound too bad. It didn't really kick around a lot, so we don't have to worry about that. Go ahead and turn the breaker on and let it run for a second, Tommy. For just a few minutes. It's quiet. You can definitely hear the bearings need some lubrication. Of course, this motor's probably the original to the lathe from '43, so not a lot of excessive vibration. I think we're going to have a good motor here. Go ahead and turn it off, Tommy. These wires are cloth covered, and so that's kind of getting cracked a little bit. I'm going to cover all those with shrink tubing. By the way, there's a lot of wires in here and they're numbered. There's several different ways to wire this depending on voltage and whatnot. So we wrote all that down. The 3 lines coming in, what numbers they connect to, well, which 2 numbers they each connect to, and then there's 3 lines that just connect to themselves internally. We wrote all that down so we wouldn't get that mixed up. But we're one step closer to getting this machine up and running. Now we're back on the lathe project. When I was taking the tailstock apart, and I apologize that I didn't get a picture of this beforehand. Apparently they've dropped the tailstock at some point. This is the hand wheel. You can kind of get an idea. I've taken it apart, and these are the spokes out of it. What had happened is somebody has dropped this tailstock probably and broke it, and when they put it back together they brazed it, and they brazed it off center and angled. It was awful. And I can find these hand wheels on eBay for a pretty good price. I can actually order new ones and just drill and re-key this. But I'm going to try to fix this one. And what I've done, I've got this part fixed already. I took this, I cut it out, cut everything out, put this in the lathe, and I turned it down. And I turned it down 1/4 inch from the front, and I beveled this. And the reason that is, I've got this flat piece here. And I'm going to lathe out the center and put this in it. And this bevel will be where I lay down a bead of braze. And then I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to do the same thing interior here. Go in 1/4 inch where I can put this flat piece in it. And it'll make this like a disc. There won't be any spokes. But unfortunately, the little lathe I'm using now, this is why we're upgrading, these chuck jaws are too small to actually hold this without it just popping off, because this is rounded. So I'm going to have to go up to a friend's house who has a bigger lathe and do this part at his house, or his shop that's by his house. Get that done. I actually, if I had the LeBlond up and running, because I wouldn't need a tailstock for this, I could do it on its own machine, but I don't have that up and running yet, and this is the part we're to right now. So we're going to go up there and lathe this out and hopefully get this thing going without having to buy one. This piece of 1/4 inch flat steel I just had laying around, it was scrap, so this won't cost us anything but a little bit of brazing rod. And I'm using brazing rod because it's the tools I have right now to put cast to steel. And this is cast iron. And you can see they've brazed it before. That's how they repaired this brake. They just did a very poor repair. When I cut it open, there was even pockets of oil in here. It doesn't look like they even cleaned it very well. Alright, back in the shop today working on this LeBlond lathe, and this is just an update to show you something I found that was really cool. These are getting pretty rare. This is an original collet closer for the machine, and I found a few of these on eBay and here and there, machinery dealers I know. But here's the part it's harder to find. This is the adapter, goes in the spindle, and this is the thread protector and also the piece that helps force this back out. These are getting harder to find. LeBlond used 2 1/8 5 thread, which is kind of odd. It's hard to find this stuff, and that's what this is, 2 1/8 5. This thing takes 2 L collets, and those are getting really hard to find now. But a tip I can put forward to you on that is a 4C is the exact dimensions, and will work in this. The only issue, as most of you know, there's a little pin in there that lines up with a keyway in the side collet. 2L had a longer keyway in it, so a 4C will not just go right in here. It won't seat all the way because the keyway is shorter. So you either have to lengthen the keyway in your 4Cs or grind this little pin out. Now, depending on how you feel about this, I know I'm going to get some backlash from machinists out there and stuff, but typically I just grind these pins out. Same way with a Bridgeport. My Bridgeport was missing the alignment pin when I got it. I never replaced it. I've never had a collet slip in it, ever. So that's just on how you feel about these alignment pins. They're not really, the pin's not supposed to drive it anyway. It's just there. It's a fail safe. But anyway, a tip: 4C, 2L, same dimensions. But that's not all that we got when we bought this. Come in here to the wash station where I've got paint stripper on an original collet rack. The guy had 2 of these. He had one that he told me he was going to show me when I got there to see if I was interested in, and it was in really good shape. It had nice machine gray on it, wasn't beat up, not dirty. I looked at it and I wasn't sure, and he let me plunder around in all of his stuff. He had a big warehouse just full of stuff. Didn't even know what he had, and I found this one. Now this one is got a lot of paint on it. It's not beat up, but it's just got a lot of paint on it and very dirty. I pulled this one out, and he gave me a much lower price on this because of the way it looked. And I looked it over. As I said, there's no damage. It's just really filthy, covered in many layers of paint, much like our lathe anyway. So I took this one because it was much cheaper. When you're rebuilding one of these machines, don't be afraid of taking a part that's grungier, nastier, covered in paint, or even has a little damage, for a cheaper price, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with this collet rack. It was much cheaper. Just going to take me a little while longer to clean it up. So keep that in mind when you're rebuilding a machine. A lot of times you can find a part that's not quite in as good a shape, but it is going to be serviceable, and you can put into just as good a shape in the end with a little more work, and it gives you a little more practice fixing stuff. Alright, well, we got the handle finished. And as you remember, this was it had 3 spokes originally, and someone had dropped it and just really messed this thing up, and tried to brace it back together and got it all crooked and off center and everything you could possibly do wrong. So what we've done, as I described earlier, is we made a plate. This is 1/4-inch steel, just from the welding shop, and I lathed it down, chamfered it, did the same in the back of this wheel here, recessed it, and you can see different color there. This is where I brazed it together. I did the same thing with the center. You see the different color there, the brass there. Chamfered it, recessed the hub here up through, and brazed it together. Made sure this keyway was cleaned out. Had to re-drill part of this hole. You can see where the braze and the steel plate kind of went into that part. Repeened that. The only thing I wish I had done is clean this up a little more. I laid this thing down, trued it all up where it would give me a good area to work off of, but they had kind of ground in, and you can see some of the old braze there when they had done their kind of halfway repair on it. And now I wish I had brazed that up and turned it down, but I didn't, and it'll be fine. So we're off to paint this now. This will be a good repair. It doesn't look original, but I think it adds some character to the machine. It's my machine. It's probably going to be my machine for a long time, so I kind of like this character that I add. I can say, I repaired that versus buying a new one, or paying for a new one even, because I had this Steele laying around. This cost me nothing but a little bit of brazing rod, which I did not buy special for this. I had that too, but if you want to put a cost on it, it's some brazing rod and a little bit of time. So we're going to paint this. I'm going to use the Ace Premium Spray. I really like that. You can get a machine gray in that. If for most stuff I paint machine gray. This machine I'm actually painting blue, which I explained earlier. And this handle I'm going to do in a gloss black. All the handles are going to be gloss black on this machine. But yeah, Ace Premium is really good paint. Just get it at your local Ace hardware store.